Om Padme Hum. Om Padme Padme Hum. Om Padme Padme Hum. You all are welcome to the Sunday service, and today we are going to start the Sunday service with the loving kindness meditation. After the loving kindness meditation, uh, Reverend Shraddha will give the Dhamma Talk for the Sunday service. First, we will practice a little bit of meditation. We will start practicing the loving kindness meditation. I will lead the meditation. Take time to relax yourself. Relax yourself. Take a deep breath and breathe out. Be seated in a comfortable position. Or if you are comfortable, close your eyes. Breathe in and breathe out. We're gonna spread the loving kindness thoughts to the whole universe. Practice your loving kindness thoughts with this guided meditation. May I be well and happy, peaceful and free from suffering. May no harm come to me. May no difficulties come to me. May no problems come to me. May I always find fulfillment. May I have patience, courage, understanding, and determination to meet and overcome the inevitable difficulties, problems, and failures in life. May my teachers, all teachers of Dharma, my parents, brothers and sisters, friends and relatives, all those who are indifferent to me, all beings in the universe, be well and happy, peaceful and free from suffering. May no harm come to them. May no difficulties come to them. May no problems come to them. May they always find fulfillment. May they also have patience, courage, understanding, and determination to meet and overcome the inevitable difficulties, problems, and failures in life. May all beings in the universe be well, happy, and peaceful. Practice these loving kindness thoughts in silence for a few more minutes. And when you hear the bell, you can stop your loving kindness meditation only for now. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Many blessings to everyone for being a part of our loving kindness meditation. And that is the end of the loving kindness meditation. With that, now we are going to start the Sunday service. Today, the speaker is our Reverend Shraddha. And I always say that he is one of the beautiful souls I have ever met in the US. Reverend Shraddha has been a resource person at IBMC for a long time, and he's a precious friend. He's a Kalyana Mitta, and so we were waiting for his Dhamma talk today, and he is ready to give his Dhamma talk. So after the Dhamma talks, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask your questions from him. And if you have also any comments, any thoughts, feel free to share it in the session. So now it's all yours, Reverend Shraddha. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. Good morning. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhamman saranam gacchami, Sangam saranam gacchami. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Today, I would like to talk about the three refuges. A disclaimer and a warning. This talk is filled with my opinions. It's how I'm approaching my practice now. And my hope is that after listening to the talk, I doubt whether I will enlighten you in any way, is that you begin to think about what it means to take refuge in the Buddha, to take refuge in the Dharma, to take refuge in the Sangha. At this point in my life, as you get older, I'm trying to simplify my practice, focusing on things like the refuges, like the 5 precepts and the Eightfold Path. And to me, that's the essence of all Buddhism. You know, we study the sutras at time. There's so much knowledge that we could take, but I think we should just contemplate certain things every day and let Buddhism sort of wash over you. At this point in my life, that's what I wanted to do. So that it enters your practice and it affects your actions daily. I don't think for particularly lay people or the Dharma teachers, the monks are different. They have more to study. They have more knowledge. We come to them to learn. But for us, I think our paths are all different. We are very different individuals, and different teachings work for different people. And so I think you should experiment and delve yourself into Buddhism and see what works for you, because we're all on the same path. The one thing we learn in Buddhism, that we're all interconnected. We're not alone in this experience. And there are teachers, and the great Zen teacher, Sunryu Suzaki once said that Buddhism was passed on from one warm hand to another warm hand. And the old saying is really true, is when the student is ready, the teacher will come to you. And we have many wonderful teachers here. You know, I look toward the monks, and I look toward Reverend Shanti to be my teacher. And I started here 27 years ago with a wonderful teacher, Reverend Karuna, who knew the Dharma really well. and led me down my particular path of Buddhism. So as we take a look at Buddhism, I'd like you to, hello, I'd like you to think about, as we talk about the three sections here, about the Buddha, the life of the Buddha, and his actions, and then his teachings, the Dharma, and then the Sangha, the community of monks and nuns. And in America, we interpret it also as the people who come to the temple, as the believers in Buddhism. And they're all teachers. Every single one of them is a teacher. And when I take a look of it and I say, I take refuge in the Buddha, what does that mean to me right now? Looking at the Buddha, not in the enlightened man, but when he was Siddhartha. Who was he? He was a prince. And then one day, leaving his protected environment, he discovered that life wasn't what he thought it was. He witnessed sickness. He witnessed old age. He witnessed death. And then what did he do? And this is the beauty to me of Buddhism. Buddhism is a religion of action, of responsibility. He wanted to understand and learn why people suffer. He then dedicated his life to finding the answers to suffering. And he started off being an ascetic. He tried many things, he starved himself, he meditated until he sat under the Bodhi tree and found the middle path. And then what did he do after his enlightenment? More action. He taught. He taught for 45 years before his death. And if you think that's easy, just try teaching for a period of time. It is not the easiest of occupations. And he was a wonderful teacher in that he met people to where they were, not dictatorial. His teaching was not dictatorial. And you could find that, and if you read the Janaka tales, the life stories of the Buddha's previous lives, or you read the Dhammapada, it is filled with wisdom, where he meets people at their own level to begin teaching. And the perfect example of that is the mustard seed story. A woman who had tried to conceive finally had a child and was very happy. And then the child died, and she refused to bury the child, but went around asking for a miracle. And she came to the Buddha and said, how can I make my child live again? And he said, yes, he met her at her level and said, yes. If you could find 5 mustard seeds, there are 5 in some story, in one story, there are 10 white mustard seeds in a home, your child would be relived, excuse me. Not reviled, but would live again. And so she began her journey and went from house to house. And in each house, there was death. They'd experienced death. In each house, there was the suffering that came to the family of death, until she realized that all people will experience that. And then she buried her child and became a follower of the Buddha. So it's really, I read at one point, and I really think this is true if you think about it, that Buddha may have been the first good therapist, the first shrink. Because if you look at his teachings and what modern therapy is based on, so much is the changing of the mind and how we look at things. you know, and the Buddha really started that. You know, there's this quote in the Dhammapada. Let me see if I could find it, which is the power of the mind. Dhammapada. All mental states have mind at their forerunner. Mind is their chief. If one acts with a pure mind, happiness follows one as one shadow that doesn't leave. And I think that's, when you think about it, one shadow that doesn't leave. And so we're dictated by our mind and our actions. And if we, on our path, if we find a means to begin to change it, to leave the suffering of our craving, our life will be improved, and you know, there will be happiness. And so I think the Buddha, through his actions, is a wonderful place to take refuge as an example. Because in many ways, you know, I hate using this term, but in many ways, when you think of him, in a way, he was a revolutionary. You know, he changed the way people think. He elevated the role of women as equal to men to be enlightened. He spoke to all people, you know, with no judgment of whether they were rich, whether they were poor, whether they were kind, whether they were not. You know, that the Dharma, the teachings were available to everyone. And, you know, we're so, you know, we're so inundated with media constantly. We're so inundated with news, with all these outside things coming into us that hinder us from practicing in a good way, from practicing to not be criticizing, you know, all the things we see that are wrong, but to make the decision of what we can do to help. And one of the reasons I love Buddhism so much is it is a religion of action. You know, our actions create our karma. And the way to improve our karma is through action. And then we could take, you know, when I say, you know, I take refuge in the Buddha, I want to think of his example of what he did. Because it wasn't just for himself, it was for everyone. And that's like a beautiful, beautiful example. And then we say, I take refuge in the Dharma, which is the teachings of the Buddha. And the teachings of the Buddha are really wonderful. I mean, first of all, we look at the Four Noble Truths, where, you know, it's translated differently, like, you know, life is unsatisfactory. That's a translation of the first noble truth that I really, really like. And this gives some people the idea, I've heard people say to me, oh, Buddhism is a depressing religion because, you know, it says that life is unsatisfactory. And I think, you know, are you insane? Of course it's unsatisfactory. It has this, if you look at it one way, it has a very happy ending. You die. It's not a very happy ending. And if you're lucky, you get old and sick and die. But why is it so unsatisfactory? Because of our cravings, because of our holding on. It's not that one shouldn't enjoy one's life or hold on to love for a while, but to know that nothing lasts. you have to sort of really realize that the holding on, is not going to make it last. There was a read, again, to quote Suzuki, when he was teaching here, he was a Japanese monk, a Zen monk who came to this country to bring Buddhism. One of the people that came to this country to bring Buddhism to America. And as he was teaching, someone asked him the question, can you define Buddhism in a sentence? And the students laughed and said, no, it's so complex. Of course you can't define the essence of Buddhism in a sentence. And he said, no, I don't need a sentence. I could say it in 2 words. And he said, everything changes. And in a way, to realize that, I think could, again, help us in our frustrations in life. And again, it brings me back to, that's what a therapist try to help us do. But then he gave us the precepts. And, they were not as he said them, and you could find various translations of them. They were not commandments. They were not dictatorial. And I think, I don't know if he said it, but Reverend Kusala always uses the term practice. I will practice not killing. I will practice not taking what is not given to me. I will practice not engaging in sexual misconduct. I will practice not creating bad and harmful speech. I will practice not taking intoxicants. I remember Reverend Karuna said that she founded this temple with Reverend Tianan, and he used to say, if you get through a day and you practice one of the 5 precepts, you're doing a good job. But they should be on one's mind. And, we say, oh, well, we're not murderers. We don't, I do that every day. And then you think of, like, the question comes up to me of being a vegetarian. Some Buddhists are vegetarian and some Buddhists are not. And some Buddhists, and this idea of it, but it's an individual thing. So if you could practice not eating meat maybe for 1 day a month, or you could practice not eating meat on the new moon or the full moon. Yeah, the full moon or the new moon. On those days, there's a story about that I read in the New Yorker of the Dalai Lama when he was visiting here. He was given at all these dinners, he was given really good vegetarian meals, but he was anemic, and his doctor made him occasionally eat meat. So after he was of course, being a Buddhist, he was very polite and ate what was given to him. But he actually went to the hotel and had to have a steak. He would eat a steak, but he wouldn't eat a shrimp cocktail. And when asked why not the shrimp cocktail, he said, that's 5 lives. I only broke that by 1 life. So, and also when you think of where he came from, there weren't all these vegetables where he came from and how he was raised. And the Buddha believed in genetics. People are finally realizing things he said 2,500 years ago, people are now realizing are true. You know, he was the first person to say, oh yes, there are other universes. We are not alone. You know, and uh, so to begin to think of the precepts of what they mean to you and how you could practice them. And this idea of false speech or harmful speech, you know, that old saying, sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. I don't think that's true. I think harmful speech is devastating. You know, speak to any people of color who've been called names. Speak to any people who are beaten up, gay people who are called names. Names can be very hurtful, and speech can be very hurtful. But sometimes, you know, we're all opinionated, and sometimes we rush to help, and we may not be given the right help. And sometimes silence can be the best. A moment of listening, a moment of silence. So we have these wonderful, you know, precepts to guide us. And then we have the Eightfold Path, you know, effort, meditation, concentration, speech, action, livelihood, thought, view. And, you know, when you think of the moral conduct part of it, which is speech, action, and livelihood, to give that thought during the day, you know, is my speech being harmful, or is my speech helping? What are my actions today? Am I indulging myself or not? You know, my livelihood. Now, people have to earn a living. I love that the Buddha also was an extraordinarily practical person of the world. He said what human beings need. They need shelter, they need food, and the Buddha said they need medicine. I mean, that's very practical, worldly. I saw this it made me laugh, to tell you the truth, this documentary on the Dalai Lama, and some young gentleman who was dying of AIDS was talking to him and said, oh, you know, I'm meditating, I'm doing all this stuff, and it's making me feel better. I'm sitting there, and the Dalai Lama was nodding and saying, good, good, good. And then he looked at the man and said, do you have a good doctor? And he said, if you don't, I know a very good one around here. Maybe you should see him. Again, we need medicine. So to me, you know, again, I keep thinking of, we are a religion of action. We are a religion of consequence. So the marvelous teachings of the Buddha you could find in your studying of the precepts, of the refuges. You could read the Janaka tales, which are very entertaining. You could read the Dhammapada. You know, to dig into them at your own level is always refreshing. I think it never gets tired. You know, we're living and we have a path as Buddhists, and it's never finished. You know, I think it's going to take, given my personality, it's going to take many lifetimes for me to be enlightened. So I don't worry about that right now. I just worry about my behavior during the day. You know, you think, you know, how genius he was. to find the middle way. It took the Greeks, nearly 2,000 years later to come up with the same idea that everyone thought was profound, which was everything in moderation, So I think we're coming to realize how modern, in a way, Buddhism is, for finding a way to live properly. And I always love this quote, which is, live happily, free from hatred, in a world midst of hatred. Live happily, free from disease, in the midst of disease. Live happily, free from restlessness, in the midst of restlessness. When we talk about the elimination of suffering, suffering is not pain. We will all experience pain. But we can turn pain into our suffering. Read from another Zen teacher saying the way to alleviate pain is let the pain live. And that is also a great psychological thing when you think of it, is the more you fight something, the bigger it will become. It's like, don't think of an elephant, you'll think of an elephant. I remember I had 20 years ago, I had major surgery. And there were a lot of people in the temple, and people knew I was going into the hospital. And one of them said, "Oh, let us chant and pray for Victor." And Reverend Karuna said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, he's going into the hospital." She said, "He has nothing to do with that now. Pray for his doctors." And I thought, how practical, how absolutely practical. So what I wanted to just mention today is we have these tools, but we have to not approach them like they're advanced algebra to study, to cram. There's wisdom to be taken in slowly and thought about and processed and incorporate into one's life. Because, life is one of my favorite quotes. It's from the Diamond Sutra. And I hope I have it here. Yes, I do have it here, which is, thus you shall think of all this fleeting world, a star at dawn, a bubble in a stream, a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, a flickering lamp, a phantom, and a dream. And that's, in a way, what life is. And I'd like to, then the last thing before I go, is I take refuge in the Sangha. That's easy for me to think of, because I take refuge in this place and these monks that are here. It has been a happy place for me for 27 years. It brings comfort. It brings a dialogue. It brings a remembrance of why we're here. And there are many different kinds of teachers here. There's scholars. You will hear different Dharma talks. But, my main teacher was always Reverend Karuna. And then when she left, my teacher became Reverend Shanti. But I remember before we were ordained as Dharma teachers, Dr. Ratnasara was here for many years as a teacher, came over and asked a question. And I was kind of shocked by the question he said. you know. And he said this to people who took the precepts to become, he said, why do you want to do this? Are you sure you want to do this? And I asked him, I said, why are you asking that question? He said, it's going to change your life whether you want to or not. So are you ready for the change? And it was true. After all these years, I realized what he said that day was true. So before I end, I'd like to read you from Thich Thien Nhat, one of my favorite poets and then Zen priests. And this is called the Refuge Prayer. At the foot of the Bodhi tree, beautifully seated, peaceful and smiling, the living source of understanding and compassion. To the Buddha, I go for refuge. The path of mindful living, leading to healing, joy, and enlightenment, the way of peace. To the Dharma, I go for refuge. The loving and supporting community of practice, realizing harmony, awareness, liberation. To the Sangha, I go for refuge. I am aware that the three gems are within my heart. I vow to realize them. I vow to practice mindfully, breathing and smiling, looking deeply into things. I vow to understand living beings and their suffering, to cultivate compassion and loving kindness, and to practice joy and equanimity. I vow to offer joy to one person in the morning and help to relieve the grief of one person in the afternoon. I vow to live simply and sanely, content with just a few possessions, and to keep my body healthy. I vow to let go of all worry and anxiety in order to be light and free. I am aware that I owe so much to my parents, teachers, friends, and all beings. I vow to be worthy of their trust, to practice wholeheartedly, so that I understand and compassion will flower, and I can help living beings be free from their suffering. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. Thank you for listening.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you so much, Reverend Sadak, for your wonderful talk. And if you have any questions from the audience, please feel free to ask those questions now, or maybe you have some comments or thoughts. Now, yes.
Thank you, Bante. Thank you, Reverend Shraddha. Thank you. Very good Dhamma talk today, because I feel very close with my lay life practice every day. I feel like you mentioned about 5 precepts at the lay life practice, at the lay life Buddhist. I try to stay practice on 5 precepts, and this is the tool, and a lot of people don't realize that can bring a lot of joys, a lot of happiness, and that's what I experience for my practice. everywhere I go, every place I get along well with everybody, and I feel everybody easy to talk to everybody. I feel everybody help me. I get help from everybody very easy, and I feel happy for that. And this is the part of, and another thing is I feel more peaceful in my mind, and that's why I believe the happiness come from the peace of mind. So I just want to share with you the way the Dhamma you talk today. It's touched my heart and touched my mind.
Thank you.
And I thank you very much for your talk today.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you so much for your comment and for your wonderful thoughts, Nam. It's brilliant, yes. And if you have any more questions from the audience, please ask whatever you feel.
I was thinking of one other thing, about, what you said, meeting other people. And I've been political all my life, in demonstrations and stuff, but I've grown to learn that to really help and do that, the first thing you have to do before you're changing the world is begin to change yourself in the right direction. And then you'll be more help. You'll be more able not just to scream and yell, but find answers to help. Once you're more centered, the help you give and your political or beliefs you have will be more effective, But it took me a while to realize that, but I have in my old age.
I guess I have a comment.
Yes, you can go ahead.
Hello, I'm Richard. It's the first time I ever heard that is have a good doctor. I've never heard that before. Can you talk more about that? Why is that?
Well, it meant a lot to me at the moment, because it went back to me that the Buddha believed that people needed medicine. He was very much practical and living in the moment. When he thought of, the Buddha, believed in, of course, karma, that we create our own karma, but he also believed in genetics. He also believed in accident. His mind was very open to things. So if you can get help from medicine to feel better, he was all for it. And it was surprising to me that he said it to somebody who was so happy in just his meditation. But the Dalai Lama thought at that moment that he also needed a good doctor, that he shouldn't just sit and meditate, that he should take action for his health.
But that we should also let the pain live, you said.
Well, no, that's different. That's a different thing. That is, and I've learned this in therapy. You don't you could try to help get rid of the pain, but you don't fight it. You could fight it with medicine, but you don't fight it in your mind. That's not going to help. That's what that statement meant. If you keep thinking, go away, go away, go away, and do nothing else, it's not going to go away. It will just increase. You have to let it be. But if there's a medicine or, you should take it.
So if we have a little headache, is it better just to meditate, focus on that pain, or take aspirin or Motrin?
Yeah, take your aspirin. I would say listen, I'm not a guru here. I'd say take the aspirin. Okay?
Okay.
I'd say take the aspirin.
And sometimes when I think about it, it does diminish when I concentrate on it.
Oh, yeah,
And
definitely. It does. It does.
and let it
You
live.
yourself, definitely. Definitely. But
Thank
by
you.
doing that, you're not creating your suffering around the pain.
Correct. Thank you for your talk.
You're quite welcome.
Any more questions? No, I have. Yes, and I have a comment for what Reverend Sada shared with us. And Buddha, he himself was a doctor, and he is called the Baisajya Guru. Baisajya in Sanskrit, Baisajya means medicine. In
Yeah.
Pali,
Yes.
Baisajya, when the Sanskrit word Baisajya comes to Pali language, it turns like Baisajya. So Baisajya means medicine. Guru means you already know.
Right, exactly.
Teacher, yes.
Yes.
So the Baisajya Guru, Baisajya Guru, whatever it is, Buddha, he himself was a doctor.
Exactly.
Even though he never went to UCLA or USC University, he was a doctor. Yes, and I do agree with Reverend Shraddha for what he said. Sometimes we might struggle with the pains. Sometimes when we are going through the suffering, we might fight with how to endure it, how to face it. The best thing is I use the word endure it. You have to face the pain, and but it doesn't mean that you have to live with that pain. You
Right.
at least take an aspirin.
Right.
That will help.
Yes.
And one more thing before I that's my comment, and I have one more thing to share with the audience. Reverend Sada, he has been a wonderful person. He has been a precious, I think, yes, a valuable student of Reverend Karuna and Venerable Dr. Ratanasara. And yes, and he has been a resourceful person at the IBMC for a long time. Today also he gave a wonderful talk, and it's because of Reverend Karuna, Dr. Karuna's students, we are continuing this Sunday service. It's because of them, Venerable Tianahang, who founded this institution. We are still here, and we are continuing their service. We have not yet stopped it, and we don't know. I'm not sure who's going to continue this service after us, but we are doing it right now. And Reverend Shraddha did a wonderful job today by giving a amazing talk, and he mixed. He gave his talk always mixed with his personal experiences, and how he understood life, and how he see the different aspects in life. Like, so this is amazing. This talk is wonderful. I really like the way you gave that talk. And the other days, sometimes you might have seen I change my limbs. It's very difficult to stay here. My legs go sleep. Today I don't know what happened to me. Like I didn't feel like the time was passing. Yes, and it was such a wonderful talk. Thank you so much, Reverend Shraddha. Bhante Shanti also says that you are a wonderful person, a precious person, a beautiful person. Two of you, both of you are beautiful souls to this IBMC. And thank you so much for your Dharma sharing today.
the fundamental, I feel the key to calm life, peace to you and regards to Tom.
Thank you.
Yes, we got your comment, and if you have anything to say,
Thank
what
you.
is her name? Mira?
Mira, okay,
Whatever.
thank you.
Oh yeah, I think that's it. We have got today as comments and questions, and it's time for us to finish the Sunday service. We are now going to chant the page 4 and page 10. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sanghang saranang gacchami. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. Deluding passions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them all. Dharma gates are limitless. I vow to study them all. Buddha's way is supreme. I vow to attain it. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and the sick find health relief. Neng di du phong go ho kap nya di nhai đằng du phong đằng nhai còn ai pa Neng ti du con gốc ô cặp ô nhân ti ai rằng du xuân sang nhai con ai pha đạo. Neng đi du con gốc ô ô nhân đi nhai đằng du xuân sang nhai con tai pan. Om Mani Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you so much again for being a part of this Sunday service. First, my thanks goes to again and again our precious friend Kalyana Mitta, Reverend Shraddha, for your wonderful and valuable Dhamma talk. And I must thank Nam and Reverend Kashanti also, and our gentleman for being here in person for the Sunday service. And thank you so much, everyone who are in the Zoom meeting. And you are listening all these whiles to this precious Dhamma Talk. And thank you, everyone, for helping us to continue this service, this Dharma service to the world. Many blessings to you. Much gratitude to Reverend Shraddha, and many blessings to everyone. And we will again meet next Sunday with another beautiful Dhamma Talk. Thank you so much. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.